Okay, Mike Masato, CEO of Staff Driven Dental and the Dental Road Warrior, returning for episode 61 in this series. Long overdue, so let's get right to it. Today, I want to talk about the only two really fundamental problems that you can have in practice. You know, when I coach and consult practices, you know, what I realize, and I've done this for a long time now, over 23 years, and 30 years in coaching businesses, is the simplest actions and the simplest way of teaching is the most powerful. There are a lot of complicated ways to go about approaching practice management, practice growth, practice consulting, and unfortunately a lot of people in the field that do what I do like to sound very smart about what they do and make it sound very complicated to you, like you don't know what you're doing. And of course you don't really know what you're doing because you didn't go to school for this, nor do you spend a lot of time and attention on learning this and implementing this stuff in your practice. So no wonder it seems complicated and difficult. You know, people always say, "Oh, Mike, you make it sound so easy." Yeah, well, it sounds so easy because I've done it like 30,000 times over the years here. So of course it's natural to me. So the simplest I can make this in terms of practice management, the better. You know, you never want to work with anybody who's going to make it so complicated because again, people will not relate to it. You will not relate to it. Staff gets defeated about doing it, and they get they don't care about it, and they just want to just get frustrated with it and go back to their old ways. So the whole thing is, and the way I've approached it, I make it very, very accessible and easy to utilize, and comfortable. People make me comfortable with it in these concepts. So two of the fundamental problems, there's only two really. If you really look at it, if you're going to analyze your practice and say which of these two problems do I have, and this will dictate what kind of consulting you're going to approach when it comes to your practice. Two basic problems. Here they are. You either have an overexpansion problem or you have an underexpansion problem. That's it. All right, that's where it starts. So when you're assessing your practice, what do I got going on here? Do I have an overexpansion problem and an underexpansion problem? Let's start with underexpansion as a problem because that's an obvious one. The first one may not be so obvious. You know, when I'm talking about underexpansion, it's a growth problem in some area. We're not getting sufficient new patients. We're not getting enough, referrals. We are not closing enough cases. We are not making enough money, obviously. These kind of things. Revenue's been going down. We've been a lot of patient attrition over the years. So it can take its form in many ways that the practice is struggling and not doing well. And insurance is killing us. So we're really losing more money each year. All right, overhead going up and costs going up, and my percentage of what I'm keeping is going down. See, these are all under-expansion problems, and there are a lot of them. And the thing is, the interesting thing about an under-expansion problem, we're painfully aware of these things, right? It doesn't take anybody to say, "Hey, look, this is not good," right? You're aware of this. You feel it every single day. We feel the stress of it and the concern of it every single day. So it's pretty obvious when we have an under-expansion problem, and that's when usually panic and urgency sets in to do something to change that. And unfortunately, by the time you have an under-expansion problem, it can be too late. And I'd much rather work with the other scenario, or work on a situation where before it becomes an emergency. It's much more costly to you when you have to go to someone like me and say, "Hey, look, I got an emergency going on. I got a serious situation. My practice is crashing. It's not doing well. It's been down for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I'm barely making it." Much harder to pull out of that because a lot of people expect that a miracle is going to happen. And all the lost revenue you've had over the last several years, I'm going to recoup in 1 year. It's not going to work that way, by the way. It takes some time. You didn't get into the hole that fast. You're not going to get out of it that quickly either. You have to understand that. All right, it's a process. It's work. All right, just like if you haven't gone to the gym and worked out in 10 years or 20 years or never stepped foot in the gym, and you go in there out of shape, you're not going to get in shape in a week. It's not going to happen. Trust me, I know a lot of people have tried. I tried that way back in the day too. It took a lot of years of training to get myself in the condition I am today. But that's a whole other video in itself. All right. So again, the underexpansion thing, all right, is obvious. That's an area where, again, we're really moved to do something. Hopefully you don't wait when you see you're in that situation, because the longer you wait, the worse it gets, and the more difficult it becomes to have someone come in and intervene with an intervention to help you with the practice. Now, the overexpansion problem is less obvious, but it can be just as dangerous. And why, or even more so, and why is that? Is because we get very comfortable. When we have an overexpansion problem, what that means is we are so busy that we have so many new patients, we don't know what to do with them. That'd be a nice thing, the schedule's packed. We're booked so many weeks out. So many people, in our practice, and we're growing so rapidly in our practice. I got so many personnel now to manage, great team, but with so many of them. See, these are all good things that we have in abundance in our practice. But if you don't manage growth, what happens is we have a tendency. It gets to a point where we get overwhelmed, and then you start seeing this thing that the practice with this roller coaster effect when we peak, and then we go down, and then we try to get it back up again. It's up and down, up and down. Because what happens psychologically when you have an overexpansion problem, as good as it is, and for the time being, sooner or later you get burnout. It becomes a lot to manage all that volume and all that work, and even all that revenue. Because when revenue goes up, expenses go up as well too. To service, to be able to service the practice to make that revenue. All right. So when you're in an overexpansion situation, we can get very complacent and say, "Yeah, I'm good, I'm fine, everything's great." The problem is if you don't manage growth, sooner or later you find out what happened. You're starting to go back. I hear this from practices all the time. Our peak was X year. Okay, well, what happened next year? Well, we really maxed out. We had all this going on, and we started to see things to fall back. And the reason why that is first of all, when you have an overexpansion problem, you have to identify what's been working. How did we get there? What were all the successful actions that had us have this growth to get there, and strengthen those things. Not get complacent and comfortable with it. Look, I got to manage my growth. I got to continue to move forward and make sure that I get really creative here, so I don't all of a sudden take a step back. And that's what I always. That's an area that again is not as aware. We're not as aware of that when we have that issue going on, because we don't look at it the same way, because the pain is not there. We're not really feeling it. Yeah, we're working hard, we're busting it, and whatever, moving and shaking, but it really hasn't hurt us in the pocketbook yet, or the bank account. The accountant really hasn't got us the bad news yet about what's going on here. So again, when you have an overexpansion situation, is you got to manage growth, and that's where more than ever management and training is really important to do, because if you want to continue to keep expanding and growing and not hit a peak, and flatten out, and then all of a sudden you see it go backwards, or subconsciously reach a psychological level like, really, I don't want to do this anymore at this pace, in this level of volume. Well, you got to make sure that you take care of that on the way up and have a plan, because a lot of times, we don't plan and build this into the culture to have keep ongoing and training and developing it, investing in your people, investing in yourself to make sure that we always stay on top. Because you know what? Things are always changing in this field. We all remember back in 2007, 2008 when the big economic crash happened. And every practice that I've met at some point either took an immediate hit or took a hit several years later. And many of them still to this day have not recovered. Why? Because the business of dentistry changed radically back then, and you didn't change along with it. All right. So now we're having an underexpansion problem when it comes that way in dentistry. We're all seem to be up against it there now. All right. But again, if you don't have, you have the good problem. It's a good problem to have, by the way, overexpansion. Really great problem to have. Just make sure it remains a good problem. Two types of problem: good quality problems and bad quality problems. Not having enough money is a bad quality problem. Having so much money I don't know what to do with it is a good quality problem. Having not enough new patients, bad quality problem. Having so many new patients, I'm concerned about managing them all to make sure that we take care of them effectively, is a good quality problem. You see what I'm saying here? So that's why it's so important to put your attention on your practice, even when it's going great, right? And you not get comfortable, and it takes constant vigilance. Vigilance means watchfulness, watching to make sure, and I'm sure somewhere in all these videos that I've done, the 60 prior, I've talked about elements of this video before. But I wanted to kind of distill it down into two distinct problems so you can look at it. If you're assessing your practice and needing to do something on it, or you feel you need to do something about it, look at it in terms of, do I have an underexpansion problem or do I have an overexpansion problem? And this will help you decide how you're going to approach your coaching. All right? So I hope this was useful and that you're enjoying watching this series. Feel free to always send me topics of interest. You can message me anyway, in many various ways. And if you're enjoying the series, feel free to share it. And I look forward to being back soon with another episode. Thanks for watching.